Dagmar Johan Amalie Overbye, often referred to as one of Denmark's most infamous serial killers, was a woman whose crimes shocked early 20th century Danish society and left a dark imprint on the nation's criminal history. Born on April 23rd, 1887 in rural Jutland, she grew up in poverty, and like many women of her time, she moved to Copenhagen as a young adult in search of work, eventually finding employment in factories and living a precarious existence on the margins of society, where economic hardship, limited social mobility, and the stigma surrounding illegitimacy created an environment in which desperate decisions could flourish. During the 1910s, Copenhagen was undergoing rapid industrialization, and the social safety net for unmarried mothers was weak, with many women facing shame, unemployment, and the risk of losing their children, circumstances that Overbye would ultimately exploit in a horrifying way. Posing as a caretaker who could arrange foster placements or adoptions, she advertised her services to unmarried mothers who felt they had no other option, promising to place their infants in good homes for a fee, thereby presenting herself as a discreet solution to a deeply stigmatized social problem. Between approximately 1913 and 20, she murdered numerous infants entrusted to her. Care historians generally attribute at least 9 confirmed murders to her, though some estimates suggest the true number may have been significantly higher, possibly exceeding 20, making her one of the deadliest serial killers in Danish history. Her methods were chillingly pragmatic and disturbingly calculated, as she reportedly strangled, drowned, or burned the babies, sometimes concealing their remains in her apartment, burying them, or disposing of them in ways designed to avoid detection. And she continued her activities for years in part because the parents who had surrendered their children were often too ashamed or socially vulnerable to question the lack of follow-up, illustrating how systemic social pressures can silence victims and enable predators. Overbye's crimes came to light in 1920 when suspicions arose after one mother persistently inquired about her child, prompting authorities to investigate. And during a search of Overbye's residence, police discovered the charred remains of infants in her stove, a discovery that horrified the public and dominated headlines, exposing not only her individual cruelty but also the broader social failures that had allowed such crimes to continue unchecked. Her trial in 1921 was a sensational event, drawing intense media coverage and public outrage, and she was ultimately convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death, though. Denmark abolished the death penalty in practice soon afterward, and her sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, which she served at the women's prison on the island of Christianshavn. Overbye died in prison on March 6, 1929, reportedly, from natural causes, bringing an end to a life marked by deception and brutality. Yet her case continued to resonate in Danish society as a grim reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by impoverished women and children during that era. Historians and criminologists examining her life often debate the interplay of personal pathology and social context, noting that while her actions were undeniably monstrous and solely her responsibility, they were facilitated by a society that marginalized unmarried mothers and lacked robust child welfare oversight, creating conditions in which an individual like Overbye could operate under the guise of providing help. Her story has since been revisited in books, documentaries, and discussions about the history of social services in Denmark, serving both as a cautionary tale about the potential for evil hidden behind seemingly benevolent roles and as a somber chapter in the evolution of child protection laws. Ultimately, Dagmar Overbye's legacy is one of calculated exploitation of trust, a grim illustration of how societal stigma and economic desperation can intersect with individual malice to produce tragedy on a devastating scale. And her crimes remain among the most disturbing examples of serial child murder in Scandinavian history.